Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
Well, we're excited to be joined by our next guest today, and he's a really good sort, as they say in England. He's a good egg, as they say in the UK, because he's on vacation in Mexico, but he's taken some time out to come and speak with us. He is an emeritus professor of geography at California State University. Now, he's been researching a number of issues, and he's been writing and broadcasting his theories and opinions on issues that are very close to our hearts on this program. Issues like climate change, issues like surveillance, issues like gang-stalking and targeted individuals. And he's doing it, and he has been doing it for a number of years in a terrifically academic way. We're delighted to welcome him to the program. While we go along, we will take questions from you when we can. A lot of questions have come in already, and I'll be tweeting out links to where you can read more about him and find out more about him. But as I said earlier, many of you got in touch with me when I announced he was coming on to say you were aware of who he is. You'd heard about him before, obviously, and that's no bad thing. Let's welcome to the program Dr. Eric T. Karlstrom. Eric, thanks for coming on. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you, Richie. It's a real pleasure to have a chance to talk to you. I've enjoyed your shows over the years, and I'm very sympathetic to the directions, the courageous directions, I might add, that you've been taking it. My websites, for those who are interested perhaps in checking them out while we speak or whenever, that are pertinent here are 911nwo.com, Gang-stalking mindcontrolcults.com. That's all one word. It's awkward, but it tells you what it's about. Also, in relation to the man-caused global warming fraud, naturalclimatechange.org, and that really plays to my own academic background most suitably. Also one on water issues in Colorado, where I live most of the time, called San Luis Valley Waterwatch.com. And I've also dabbled in the world all of my life as a musician, and I've got a music site, erickarlstrom.com. That's the only thing that I'm selling is my CDs. This other stuff I do as a way to kind of help educate myself and others, and provide resources, provide digital libraries of information. Obviously, we can take this thing in a number of directions, but I think you're interested in talking about the gang-stalking and targeted individuals. Is that right, Richie?
I am, Eric, and I'll tell you what we'll do. I've been obviously reading up a lot on you over the last few days, and I'm in love with the work you're doing. And what we'll do, I hope in a week or two, or maybe even next month, we'll get you back on and we'll focus on climate change. I would love to talk about gang-stalking, because we've touched on it and dabbled in it a little bit with some people whom are undergoing this sort of attack and have been talking about it. Eric, if you were to explain to somebody who'd never heard the term gang-stalking before, as a beginner's guide to it, what would you say to them? What is gang-stalking?
Very good. Well, I think that's an excellent place to start. I wanted to start here. Gang-stalking and targeted individuals, these words I think would need to be redefined. I don't think these are words that serve we, the public, very well. These are probably handed to us from the people who are doing the operations in order to confuse us. So based on my research and reading and personal experience now in this topic, I would say gang-stalking would be better defined as a worldwide interagency program that targets individuals and groups who have been designated as adversaries in the New World War, which is termed in a host of military documents in the United States as 4GW, fourth generation warfare, AW, asymmetrical warfare, IW, irregular warfare, UW, unconventional warfare, capital MOOTW, military operations other than war, IO, information operations, PO, it goes on and on, peace operations, LIC, low intensity conflict, EBO, effects-based operations, and network-centric warfare, to name some of them. And so I'm kind of working on a better acronym, and I need help. Maybe there's some clever listeners out there.
Yeah.
What I've got is, how about this? Instead of gang stalking, covert illegal citizen harassment, experimentation, torture, and assassination program, with a kind of a lousy acronym, SITCHATAP.
It's not bad, Eric. It's not bad.
Here's one that's worse. What's that?
It's not bad. As a start, it's not bad at all.
Okay, here's another one. It's even worse. Covert, extra-legal, global, interagency, citizen surveillance, experimentation, torture, and assassination program, SELJIC-SETAP.
Right.
Anyway,
It'll never catch on.
These are unwieldy, but they are descriptive. Now, in terms of targeted individuals, see, gang stalking doesn't tell you who's doing it or why. I think the terms that I'm coming up with may be a little better in that regard. Targeted individuals doesn't tell you who's doing it either. I think maybe another terms would be designated as states' internal enemies or adversaries, or they use the terms insurgents, non-state actors, potential terrorist threats. These are blacklists, like the Phoenix program in the Vietnam War, to neutralize the domestic population or the domestic support system for the Viet Cong back in the Vietnam War. In this case, the people that anybody can be put on these lists and tortured and ultimately harassed or even killed.
So, Eric, somebody gets their name on this list, and it might be some man or woman who is agitating, organising rallies in state capitals or in London or Manchester, and the person might be very charismatic, and they might be gathering great numbers of people, and they might be disseminating important information. Now, who decides to attack them? Is it one agency, or is this a multiple agency program against the people?
Absolutely multiple agency. In fact, just like the Phoenix program in the Vietnam War, which went on from 1967 until the early 70s, which our leadership deemed a success, and patterned the death squads in Central America, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and elsewhere after that. This is coordinated many agencies. In fact, most of the sectors of society are coordinated with these Department of Homeland Security fusion centers, now 78 in America, and the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. What they're dealing with is federal agencies, intelligence agencies, and the military, who are now coordinating efforts with local police and the private sector contractors and vigilante citizens groups like Neighborhood Watch and vigilante police groups and first responders and even businesses, like your local restaurant and hotels, so that essentially what the military is doing is using the civilian sector as quote unquote irregular forces in order to target other citizens, and you've described it well, who might be perceived as potential leaders, who might want to educate and mobilize others for some kind of political change. So This is a way to neutralize smart people.
Eric, can I clarify something? Can I clarify something there, because you've blown my mind, and no pun intended there. You've absolutely knocked me for six. The old cricket term there. I'm actually stunned. You were saying that these, I'm going to call them monsters because they are monsters. These are sociopathic, even psychotic monsters. They are using our friends and neighbours against the people they are targeting. You mentioned Neighbourhood Watch. How would they do that? Would the Neighbourhood Watch person be aware that he or she is being used as a conduit in order to target somebody else? Are they aware of it? How does it work?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Dr. John Hall, who is a physician in San Antonio, Texas, wrote a book called, two books on this. One is called Guinea Pigs, Technologies for Control. And he says that the targeting has 6 phases. The first, you get selected. Second, surveillance, then stalking, and concomitantly with the stalking, you have the defamation phase where the target is defamed in the community. And then you have the direct attacks with electronic weapons, directed energy weapons, and then you have the monitoring of the program. Well, along the way, operatives, who might be, with the local police or with the military or whatever, are actually conducting a rumor campaign and are spreading lies about the targeted individual. They actually have in their term. There's a lot of this coming from a book by Mark M. Rich, New World War, Revolutionary Methods for Political Control. And so they would go into the community, they would tell, your neighbors that you're a pedophile or you're a prostitute or whatever, and that you're a suspect. They don't have enough evidence to lock you up, but they got you under surveillance. Would they be willing to help with the investigation by doing such and such? And pretty soon they're dangling, a little incentives like money,
cash,
part-time, full-time money, etc.
This is incredible stuff, isn't it? We've got Eric T. Karlstrom on the line, folks. We're tweeting out Eric's websites. Relevant to this is Gang-stalking, mindcontrolcults.com. I've put that out there. Eric is a fascinating man because he obviously is an establishment man. He's a professor emeritus in geography at the California State University. And Eric, before we move on to talk about the technology and the sorts of things that happen to people, they never see guys like you coming, do they? I mean, they never see guys like you coming. Guys with that academic pedigree that you have. It's not so easy to shoot you down and call you a crazy conspiracy theorist. That's why you're so valuable, I think.
That's why they try to take us out. Yes, it's
wonderful, isn't it? No, it really is good. So I've been lucky enough to interview people over the years, and you've heard of some of these people. You know them. People like Barry Trower, who used to be a Navy weapons researcher for the Royal Navy here in the UK. And Barry said years ago, they've had weapons to direct energy at people, weapons to put voices in people's heads. But what's fascinating, Eric, about talking with you tonight, it's almost like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but some of these directed energy weapons and all this might be old technology now. I mean, this might be yesterday's stuff. We might not even have a clue as to what they have, what technology they have that they're capable of directing at us now, if you understand.
Yes. Well, we have, like in this book, New World War by Mark Rich, he lists many of the patents. A lot of this is electronic warfare technology that, goes back to the 50s and 60s and 70s with the CIA's MK Ultra program and even earlier. A lot of this is very, very top secret, classified kind of research. As you say, a lot of it's old. I'm sure there's new stuff that we're not aware of. But critical to their tools are these top secret technologies of electronic warfare, microwave hearing, as you mentioned. Synthetic telepathy is one, voice to skull. Also, ultrasound is a common one. They use remote neural monitoring using actual EEG, electroencephalogram brain prints to follow individuals around. I mean, it's phenomenal what they can do, but that's married with a whole 100 years of research in what you call PSYOP, psychological operations, which goes back to the Tavistock Institute back in 1921 and goes through the CIA's research and the Nazis' research. So they have these top secret technologies which they're using covertly to neutralize the enemy. And so they want to make sure this is as covert as possible. Now, there are some of us who have woken up to the fact that, yes, we're being targeted, and we're working pretty hard to understand it and to inform other TIs, we'll use that term for now, because the more you understand about this, the better chance you have to defend yourself against it. And as we learn more and more, I think we will go on the counteroffensive. Ultimately, this is an information war, and it's a war for legitimacy. Because in order for the government and the military to be able to pull this off, they have to be perceived as legitimate by the population. But if we can show, as I've done on my website, that 9/11 was an operation, in fact, probably of fourth-generation warfare that involved PSYOP and electronic warfare, as per Dr.
Right, we've just lost Eric momentarily there. He is in Mexico, just outside Mexico City. We're still connected, but the sound has dropped out there for a second. It might be internet speed his end. So what I'm going to try and do is reconnect to him. It's 17 minutes past the hour. This is your Richie Allen Show, broadcasting live on davidicke.com, Fab Radio 2, TuneIn Radio and Alternate Current Radio. Tell you what I'll do, I'll take a quick break. When we come back, hopefully we'll be reconnected with Eric.
Jim Rickards here, best-selling author of Currency Wars and The Road to Ruin. But today I'm issuing a critical new warning to all British listeners. Britain is under attack and your personal and financial security is in grave danger. To find out why, visit britainunderattack.co.uk now. The threat of this devastating attack increases every day, and it's crucial you act before it's too late. To see what you can do about it, visit britainunderattack.co.uk right away. It's not too late to prepare. See my full warning at britainunderattack.co.uk today.
Looking to arrange a mortgage? Confused by all the deals available? Let Manchester Mortgages do the work for you. Take advantage of our free mortgage review offer throughout February and March and see if we can save you money. We are whole of market brokers with access to hundreds of mortgage schemes across the UK. Call us on 0161 706 0242 or go to manchestermortgages.co.uk. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage. Manchester Mortgages are a trading style of Mortgages for You North West Limited, who are authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
All eyes on Manchester, Saturday, March 4th, 2017. The Awakening at Bowler's Exhibition Centre, Manchester. Join the stars of the Ancient Aliens TV series and the leading figures in the field of ufology and ancient alien theories. Eric Von Daniken, author of the hit book Chariots of the Gods, and Emmy Award winner Linda Moulton Howe. Get tickets now at www.awakeningufo.com.
There's a place high in the mountains of Spain, a sanctuary where souls gather from all around the globe to learn about themselves and experience powerful changes in the way we see our world. They become awakened to their gifts and their power to heal others. Become part of this ever-growing worldwide family of unique, pure energy healing practitioners. Discover how amazing you truly are. Go to www.markbayerski.com. It could just change your life forever.
Virtually every transaction that involves a child is valuable to somebody.
We intend to show everyone the real reason children are being removed at an alarming rate.
No, this is awful.
The baby's not been seen by the doctor or nothing.
They are psychopathic. They have got the legal right to kill children now, because that's what they do.
Traffic 2, available now at pmiddletonpictures.co.uk.
Right, welcome back to the programme, p2middletonpictures.co.uk for Traffic 2 Extraordinary Film. Now, Eric has gone offline. Everything is fine our end, but he's gone offline where he is in Mexico. That could be for a number of reasons. The signal was very strong, funnily enough, during that conversation that we were having, but it might be that there's been some problem with the internet connection there. It's exactly 21 minutes past the hour, so we'll give it a few minutes and hopefully he'll reconnect, because this is absolutely fascinating stuff. It really is. In the meantime, I've tweeted out an interview that I did with Dr. Catherine Horton, the Oxford PhD, an interview that we did in very early December. I came across Catherine. In fact, she reached out to me and sent me some YouTube videos she'd made. And Catherine is convinced that she's been subjected to the sorts of harassment and stalking and voice-to-skull technology that Eric was about to get right into there. And I've tweeted that interview out in the event that you didn't hear it back in December. It really is fascinating. It's also important. And Catherine Horton was incredibly articulate, as you'd expect, but she was also really, really, really credible. All right, 22 minutes past the hour. A number of comments came in there with a number of points. Dr. Rowney killed it, which I would have put to Eric at some stage. That was from Buzz. Comments coming in from Faisal, from Field Mouse as well. Tristan wanted to know, saying, Tristan says on Twitter, I do believe, Eric, but Richie, could you ask him for real world examples of gang stalking? Now, Catherine Horton's story was fascinating because she attended a trial, didn't she? She went to the Old Bailey to attend a trial to do with, it was the Russian poisoning trial, wasn't it? It was, if I remember correctly. And she was doing that for research. She just started turning up to the trial and sitting in the gallery. And it was around, it was during that trial that she started getting stalked and followed by strange men, mysterious men. That was the beginning of what has become pretty much of a nightmare for Catherine. And we are going to get her back on the programme real soon to do a follow-up with her. Now, Eric has just reconnected with me. Fingers crossed that we get him back in the room. Maybe he was in an internet cafe. Maybe his time ran out. I have no idea. But he's online. We're trying to connect to him now. The slings and arrows of live radio. This is your Richie Allen Show on davidike.com, Fab Radio 2, alternatecurrentradio.com, and TuneIn Radio.
Yes.
Eric, you're back in the room. How are you? Welcome back. Now, you might be frantic.
Yes.
You're there. Good. And then he's getting a bit fadey again. He's fading out.
Richie, it's kind of weak one reception here. Sometimes it works well, but sometimes not. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, which is great. It's come back again strong, Eric. So I'm delighted. You're back in the room. Let's hope that we've got another 20, 25 minutes if we need. Let's hope the signal holds strong. Some of our listeners were asking for real world examples of harassment through the gang stalking itself, Eric. If you want to talk about some examples.
You know, there's lots of antecedents to this program. We can go back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s when the FBI was conducting their COINTEL or intelligence program to neutralize groups like the Black Panther. 28 Black Panthers killed. No FBI agents were killed, by the way, so the score was 28-0. Using many of these same discreditation techniques, which can, defamation techniques in the community, takedown program, really. Jean Seberg, who was an activist and a very attractive actress, was driven to suicide in the FBI's COINTELPRO, as was Ernest Hemingway, from what I read. So this is not new. This back to the Soviet Cheka, the Soviet KGB, the Red Terror in the Soviet Union goes back to the East German Stasi, where 1 in 6 East Germans were enlisted as citizen spies that worked with the Stasi police to harass, terrorize their fellow citizens who've been designated as political enemies. In terms of what's going on now, Gloria Naylor is a black author who wrote an excellent book, 1996, which she's a I just have so much esteem for her. She died this 2016 of heart problems, and of course they can target the heart with the directed energy weapons and cause palpitations and heart attacks, etc. Her book describes her targeting. 19 was the year it got started, and of course when this begins on somebody, you have no idea what's going on. All you know is your life's been turned upside down and been turned into hell. And so it really is an attempt to turn an individual's life, to isolate them, separate them from their family, friends, jobs, houses, get them out on the street where they can really work on them, and destroy them using pain, to break their will. It's from a psychological point of view, it's just using loading more pain on an individual.
It's terrifying.
Stimulus response, I guess they call it.
And it's terrifying for people, and they don't know where to go. And if they do go to the police, because of compartmentalization and because of need to know, the average policeman or woman doesn't have a clue that any of this is going on. We spoke with a woman just before Christmas called Dr. Catherine Horton. She's an Oxford PhD. She's a PhD like you, very credible woman, academic qualifications, coming out the wazoo. She's a really smart lady. And she got in touch with us, and she hadn't spoken with anybody. What she described, Eric, the escalation of it from initially being followed and stared at and grinned at maniacally by very dark men, because she went to a trial involving the murder of a Russian dissident in London, and started getting all this harassment. It escalated from there then to voice to skull, to directed energy weapon attacks. And there's a very, very credible woman. One of the points she made when she spoke with me was, who do you tell about this? Because you speak to anybody in authority, their immediate inclination is to think, well, this lady is paranoid or she's not well. This is clandestine stuff. Your average policeman and woman, they will not know about this. Is that fair to say?
I don't think so, Richie. I think oftentimes they are actually in on it. I think they go to the... Are you there?
Yeah, listening loud and clear.
I think they go to the...
We got you loud and clear, Eric. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think the police departments are often pulled into it through the fusion centers. They're coordinated by the Department of Homeland Security.
We're going to lose him again.
So that if people do go to, are often not going to get a sympathetic ear. If they go to a doctor, the goal of the program is to get you locked up as a crazy, get you to commit suicide, to kill yourself, or to commit a crime of passion against somebody else, to push you over the edge. Then they can put you in a psychological institution. Now, we can look back at the work of Dr. His book about the Bluebird Project, which is back in 1951. That's a predecessor of MK Ultra.
Right, we're losing Eric, and it keeps breaking up, and it's actually becoming impossible. So we're going to try and phone him, and if we can phone him, we'll get him back on, and we'll get into this, because where he's going now is incredibly interesting. This next segment, we're going to talk about how somebody can be induced through this type of targeting to committing a crime, a very serious crime. We're talking about mass shootings. We're talking about, somebody running into a building, running into a school, running into a cinema with automatic weapons and shooting people. So we're struggling here. We're struggling to get him back on, sadly. And it's because he said the coverage where he is based is a bit hit and miss. It was fantastic for the first 15 minutes or thereabouts. Let's see, can we get him back on, and can we do this? It's just not happening. It's just not happening at the moment. Sadly, one of those things, isn't it? Doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it's a real pain in the arse. So we'll persevere with Eric, see what we can do, and hopefully get him back on. We do have a backup phone number, so we're trying that, but that's problematic as well. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some music and see can we get him back on. Right now, Eric is not near a phone right now, but we've got him back on, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed that the line improves. Eric, yes, we've got you back in the room. We'll persevere with this and hope that the line holds firm for us. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Eric, you mentioned there just before we got cut off again, you were starting to get into areas where somebody can be targeted, but not to harass them or to interfere with their health and give them suicidal thoughts, but somebody can be targeted to induce them to go and commit a serious crime, a shooting, a mass shooting. And many of our listeners have said to us over the years that when they see these so-called terrorist attacks in certain places around Europe or even in the United States, that not all of these are lunatic jihadists. Some of them are, of course. Not all of them are. Others are done by people in the control of the agents of the state, those who can use this mind control technology. Is that something you agree with?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think so many of these shooters are victims of CIA, MK Ultra, mind control, voice to skull, whatever, direct energy operations, and Gang-stalking. In fact, Naval's yard, and he had his gun there, and on it he had carved the letters my ELF weapon, and that ELF would stand for extremely low frequency. So he'd been driven to it. In fact, I'll go a little further and say that this whole thing about Islamic terrorism and Islamofascism is created out of the CIA and Mossad and even the Nazis going back decades. The CIA created the Mujahideen back in 1980s. We and Mossad created ISIS. All of this Islamic terrorism is a creation of the enemy in order to advance this new world war, which is so well described in Mark M. Rich's book. And these directed energy weapons then are very, very useful secret weapons then in this new world war. Of course, it does get to torture, and Gitmo and Abu Ghraib and all those sorts of things. It's all part of it. But I think the important thing here is to know that the battle space has been defined in such a way that the whole world is the battle space. This is in military documents, and our American Empire military budget for 2017, $773.5 billion, calls for spectrum dominance of the whole world from the bottom of the ocean to space. And as of 2014, one reporter, McGrath, said, yes, we got 5 or 6 hot wars going in 134 nations to destabilize those with this kind of conventional warfare. And if you start to add all of these targeted individuals and target groups that are being targeted now under this 4th generation warfare, there's probably millions of ongoing operations, military operations, that use civilians as irregular forces. So our world has been changed from us, Richie, and there has been a restructuring of society that we need to look at very carefully. That's part of it, a little restructuring of society.
One of the things that always fascinates me, and I mentioned this earlier on, is your background, your academic background. What do your peers think of your research into these areas, Eric? I mean, they must have an opinion. I mean, the standard one is, our mate he's lost it, he's lost his marbles. What sort of feedback do you get from your peer group?
Okay, well, I mean, I've got my friends. One of my friends was former Office of Naval Intelligence, and of course he was an operative during the Vietnam War, so he would have, been a case officer, and he would have done these kind of things that we're talking about, like a CIA case officer. So his automatic response would be, "Oh, that's all conspiracy theory." And then one of our good friends is totally with me on this stuff, so it varies by the individual. I just got an email from somebody else in the California state system who says they have been a target for many years, and was calling my attention to the fact on the camp there was an FBI investigation of such and such a professor. And so, yeah, I mean, the intellectual side of things is also very much targeted. I think I've been in this, crosshairs probably since the Vietnam War era, because I was protesting back in 1969, and we had MH chaos going on in this country, where the CIA was and the military were surveilling American protesters, illegally, of course, but doing it nonetheless in a war operations room in the Pentagon. And just as they were doing the Phoenix program in the Vietnam War to take out the domestic support system for the Viet Cong, they're doing this in the United States. You get into the work of David McGowan, and who wrote Weird Scenes from Laurel Canyon, you see how extraordinarily extensive the mind control operations were in America in the late 60s. Now, so this is the world I grew up in. So, I guess, it was automatic that people in the Vietnam War era didn't trust anything the government said. So this is nothing new for me.
And Eric, it must be a thing as well when men and women get into politics. And I don't mean the rich men and women who get into politics, but sometimes we get people from working backgrounds who manage to get into politics. They manage to win a seat in Parliament or in Congress. And when they were on the campaign trail, they were firebrands. You know, they were talking about taking on the banks, or taking on corruption, taking on the big companies who don't pay any taxes. And then they almost become like mice when they eventually ascend to the position they were trying to reach when they become a member of parliament or a congresswoman. And I've often wondered, have these people just been targeted in that way? Has their demeanour been changed? Has their energy been changed before they enter office? And we think, great, one of ours is going to Congress. Mr. Smith is on his way to Washington and he's going to do what we want him to do. But these people say, well, we'll see about that. And they target guys like that. It must be going on, surely.
Yeah, you know, Cynthia McKinney, who I believe you just interviewed, is one of my heroes, and Jim Traficant as well, both Congress people who have gone public with the fact that even when they started to declare themselves a candidate, they were approached by AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, one of the most powerful lobbies in Washington, D.C., and they were asked to sign an agreement saying they would support Israel, and if they didn't, of course, then their funding would dry up. And, of course, all congressmen and senators realized that, you know, you've got to have money to run a campaign, and this is, you know, one way that they've been co-opted by the Israel lobby, even before they win the office that they're running for. Now, Traficant is no longer with us, but Cynthia McKinney still is, and she's written and talked about this in her interviews. I've got these interviews posted on my website.
Yeah.
You know, there's a woman, courage, and this is how things are controlled, through money and through intimidation and control files that go back to the, you know, J. Edgar Hoover era and things like that. And you know, you get a congressman in a compromising situation, you know, and then got him, you know, or her. But even if they just sign the declaration of support for Israel, and they veer away from that, then their funding dries up and they find themselves out of office. So,
yeah, the point
they're very.
Yeah, Eric. The point I was making was
system.
The point I was making was those that are inclined to go against that. How many of them have had this technology directed at them? I mean, we'll never know, but I'm guessing it must be the case that public representatives at all levels, maybe at state level, even at county council level, the county commissioner level, there must have been examples where the technology itself is beamed at or directed at these people. You know, it just fascinates me, because for the people who control that technology, for them the possibilities are pretty endless, right? They're limitless. They can do whatever they want and target whomever they want, more importantly.
Yeah, and thus remake society in their own image. Yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think our politicians are under attack various ways, and this would be one of the most insidious and ferocious ways to attack anybody.
I'm going to mention Gang-stalking, mindcontrolcults.com. We've got Eric Karlstrom on the line. I'm sorry about the sound problems. It is breaking up as sporadically as we go along. That's just one of those things. It's unfortunate it happens. We'll do this again with Eric anyway in the future. Check out Gang-stalking, mindcontrolcults.com. So Eric, the obvious question then, what can people being targeted by this do about it? Now I go back again to Dr. Catherine Horton from Oxford. She's now in Switzerland and she really believes she's under the cosh. She's under the hammer of this at the moment. What do people undergoing this sort of attack, what options do they have open to them to do something about it? What can they do?
Well, you know, I think, yeah, for my sake, this is why I've put together this website. I can recommend some resources. People can read these things, can learn about the program, and therefore they can protect themselves better. Again, Mark Rich's book, New World War, Revolutionary Methods for political control is extremely helpful. Marshall Thomas's book, Monarch, the New Phoenix Program, is excellent. Douglas Valentine's The CIA as Organized Crime, How Covert Operations Corrupt America and the World. Dr. John Hall's Guinea Pigs, Technologies of Control. A.K. Forwood's book, Gang-stalking and Mind Control. If you can deconstruct this program and understand what is happening to you, they're trying to put you through hell. They're trying to get you to kill yourself or somebody else, or get labeled as insane so they can put you away. But the more you understand about the program, the more you can defend yourself. And then eventually, I'm hoping that we can become more techno-savvy. These are weapons that are being fired at us, these electronic weapons. Once we understand how to counter that attack, we'll shoot back. And we have a Second Amendment in America. We'll shoot back, and that will, I'm certain, our neighbors. So, education, I think, right now is, but there's many things we should be doing. It's a huge problem.
It's a massive problem. Eric, the line has gone bad, so just for today, we'll leave it there. We've done well to persevere with it, and we've heard a lot of really important stuff from you. I want to thank you for going out of your way to do it, and I look forward to doing it again real soon on a stronger connection, and we'll go for a longer program. We'll get you on for the entire program because there's so much more I want to get into with you on other subjects. But in the meantime, I just want to thank you for coming on your holiday, and I think what you're doing is remarkable, and it takes great courage considering the background that you yourself come from. So thanks for doing that, and let's book you back in again real soon.
Excellent, Richie, and thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
It was an honor. Dr. Eric T. Karlstrom there on the line to us from Mexico, and again, sorry about the audio problems there. Eric said to me on text there that basically the audio, the signal, the internet signal strength is good most of the time, but other times it drops out and drops in intermittently. We did okay at the beginning, but then we had one or two problems. But he'll be back in the US in Colorado real soon, where he's got a much stronger and a much faster internet connection, and we'll do more with him because he's into a lot of other things which we're very interested in this program. So that's Eric Karlstrom. And just to give you that email address, the website address again, it's gangstalkingmindcontrolcults.com. Eric Karlstrom, fascinating man, really is. Professor Emeritus of Geography Professor Emeritus at California State University. What a fascinating guy.